You check your savings account balance. The number is the same as last month, same as 6 months ago. It feels safe. It feels stable. It feels like you're being responsible and prudent. But while you're not watching, that cash is dying. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, predictably, mathematically. And by the time you realize what's happened, the damage is irreversible. Welcome to the Finance Vault Origins, where history meets with money and power, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. When we think about protecting wealth, we default to cash. It's intuitive. Money in the bank can't crash like stocks, can't be seized like property, can't become worthless like bad investments. Cash feels like the safest option during uncertainty. But history tells a different story. Every major economic transition reveals the same brutal truth. Cash holders lose. Not to dramatic collapses, but to silent erosion that compounds until savings become worthless. And right now, multiple forces are converging to make 2026 potentially devastating for anyone trusting cash as security. Inflation isn't just rising prices. It's the systematic transfer of wealth from savers to debtors, from the prudent to the leveraged, from those who hold cash to those who hold assets. When inflation runs at 3% annually, your savings lose half their purchasing power in 23 years. At 5%, that halving takes just 14 years. At 10%, 7 years. The math is simple and merciless. This is where the illusion of safety becomes dangerous. Your account balance doesn't change, so it feels like nothing is happening. But that $100,000 in savings isn't buying $100,000 worth of goods anymore. It's buying $95,000 worth this year, $90,000 next year, steadily declining, while the number stays the same. It's like watching a video of someone drowning in slow motion, while everyone insists they're fine because their head is still above water. Post-pandemic monetary expansion created the setup. Governments printed trillions. Central banks kept rates artificially low for years. The money supply exploded. That money doesn't disappear. It flows through the economy, diluting the value of every dollar already in existence. Your cash didn't become less numerous. It became less valuable. And that process accelerates when everyone realizes it's happening and tries to exit cash simultaneously. Weimar Germany started with reasonable inflation in 1919. By 1923, prices doubled every few days. A cup of coffee could cost more at the end of the meal than at the beginning. People who held cash in 1919, thinking they were being cautious, watched their life savings become unable to buy a loaf of bread. The currency didn't fail overnight. It eroded month by month until the erosion became a collapse. Zimbabwe printed $100 trillion bills. Venezuela requires wheelbarrows of cash for basic purchases. These extreme cases teach a lesson about degree, not kind. Every paper currency eventually fails. Some take decades, some take centuries, but the pattern is universal. Gold has held value for 5,000 years. The dollar is 250 years old and has lost 96% of its purchasing power, and that remaining 4% is accelerating its decline. The pattern repeats because the incentives never change. Governments always spend more than they collect. Financing that gap through taxation is politically painful. Financing it through currency debasement is politically invisible until too late. Every government throughout history has chosen debasement. The modern version just uses digital systems instead of coin clipping, making it even less visible to the population losing purchasing power. When inflation exceeds the interest rate on your savings, you have negative real returns. You're earning 1% interest, while inflation runs at 4%. Congratulations, you just lost 3% purchasing power while thinking you were saving. Banks advertise the nominal rate, what they're paying you. They don't advertise the real rate, what you're actually earning after inflation steals from your balance. This is the mechanism that punishes savers systematically. Throughout the 2010s and 2020s, real rates have been negative most of the time. Financial advisors tell you to keep an emergency fund in cash. 6 months of expenses, sitting in a savings account, losing value every single day. That advice made sense when real rates were positive. In an era of negative real rates, it's a guaranteed path to wealth destruction. The trap is that pulling money out of cash feels risky. Buying assets means accepting volatility, taking on apparent risk, making active decisions. Holding cash feels safe, even though it's mathematically guaranteed to lose value. Our psychology is wired for visible risks, not invisible erosion. We'll avoid a 20% chance of losing 10%, while accepting a 100% chance of losing 3% annually forever. Central bank digital currencies are coming. The Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, and dozens of others are developing or testing digital versions of national currencies. This isn't about convenience. It's about control. Digital currency enables negative interest rates on savings, programmable expiration dates on money, and direct government access to every transaction. When currency goes fully digital, the government can impose a negative 5% interest rate on savings. Hold $100,000, and it automatically becomes $95,000 next year. They can make currency expire, spend it within 6 months, or it disappears. They can restrict what you buy, where you spend, and who you send money to. And they can do this with perfect enforcement because every transaction is monitored and controllable. This isn't conspiracy theory. It's stated central bank policy. The Bank of England has published papers on implementing negative rates through digital currency. The European Central Bank discusses programmable money. China's digital yuan is already operational with spending restrictions. The technology exists. The policy frameworks are being developed. And the justification will be economic necessity during the next crisis. Every dollar held in cash is a dollar not buying assets that rise with inflation. Real estate appreciates. Stocks generally track economic growth. Commodities maintain purchasing power. Even gold, which produces nothing, holds value better than cash. The wealth gap isn't just about rich people making good investments. It's about average people holding cash while the wealthy hold appreciating assets. From 2020 to 2024, someone who held $100,000 in cash still has $100,000 in nominal terms. Someone who put that $100,000 into a diversified stock portfolio likely has $150,000 or more. Someone who bought real estate in 2020 has seen significant appreciation. The cash holder feels responsible and prudent. The asset holders got wealthier, not through superior intelligence, just through understanding that cash is for transactions, not for storing value long term. This gap accelerates during monetary expansion. When central banks expand money supply, that new money flows to assets first. Stock prices rise, real estate appreciates, commodities increase. By the time inflation shows up in consumer prices, the asset holders have already captured the gains. The cash holders are just starting to notice their purchasing power declining. They've been left behind before they even realized the race started. People hold cash because it's liquid. You can spend it immediately. But liquidity isn't valuable if the thing you're holding is losing value faster than you can spend it. You have instant access to a depreciating asset. Congratulations. Real liquidity means being able to convert wealth to spending power when needed. An asset that appreciates and can be sold provides more real liquidity than cash that's constantly losing purchasing power. During hyperinflation, cash becomes the least liquid asset. Nobody wants it. Prices are quoted in alternative units. Transactions happen through barter or foreign currency. The thing you held for safety becomes the thing nobody will accept. This seems impossible until it happens. Then it seems inevitable. And the transition from impossible to inevitable happens faster than anyone expects. Our minds struggle with inflation. We think in nominal terms, the number in the account, not real terms, what that number can buy. This nominal thinking is what makes cash feel safe when it's actually dangerous. The account balance stays stable, triggering our security instinct. Meanwhile, purchasing power evaporates, but slowly enough that we adjust expectations rather than recognize the loss. Retirees on fixed incomes experience this brutally. Social Security provides $2,000 per month. That number might stay the same for years, but what $2,000 buys declines annually. Rent increases. Healthcare costs rise. Food prices climb. The nominal income is stable. The real income collapses. And because it happens gradually, people adapt by cutting back, rather than recognizing they're being systematically impoverished. Multiple pressures are converging. Government debt levels are historically high, requiring either default or inflation. Monetary expansion from pandemic responses is still working through the system. Geopolitical instability is disrupting supply chains, creating cost-push inflation independent of monetary policy. Central banks face impossible choices: raise rates and crash the economy, or keep rates low and let inflation run. Historically, governments facing these conditions choose inflation over default. It's politically easier to let currency depreciate than to explicitly renounce debts. The consequences are distributed broadly, rather than falling on specific creditors. And by the time the public realizes what's happened, the damage is done. The setup for 2026 looks increasingly like previous periods that ended with significant currency debasement. Cash isn't an asset. It's a transaction medium that loses value when held long-term. Financial advice that made sense during stable monetary periods becomes wealth destruction advice during monetary instability. And we're entering a period of monetary instability, whether policymakers admit it or not. The prudent choice isn't holding cash for safety. It's understanding what cash is for transactions and what assets are for storing value across time. The counterintuitive reality is that the risky choice of holding assets might be safer than the safe choice of holding cash. Not because assets can't decline, but because cash will almost certainly lose purchasing power, while assets have at least the possibility of maintaining or increasing it. History is clear on this. Cash holders in unstable monetary periods lose every time, without exception. Subscribe to go deeper into the archives. The answers are hidden in plain sight. I'll show you how to read them.